Welcome back to Tima Baller's podcast. Well, indeed, this is going to be an interesting episode. I say it every time, but I was planning to make a Premier League review episode, the weekly episode reviewing the Premier League, but I want to make this video now on the biggest topic that we've been hearing for the past few months. The debate, the talking point has been going on and on and on, and that is indeed Erik Ten Hag. We are at the moment, because tomorrow most likely we will see the decision on Erik Ten Hag, whether or not he will be sacked or backed, whether or not this saga will come to an end with a sacking or a backing. Crazy situations. United 0, Villa 0 as United take a draw at Villa Park. And will Ten Hag be getting that £70 million if he gets sacked? Obviously that's how his contract works. He's got contract left, so if he does get sacked, he gets quite a lot of money. But look, it's not about the result. It's not at all about 0-0. This result doesn't tell you much. United go away to Aston Villa, who is a very strong side. They're currently 5th place in the league. They're a really good team. We know they've got a very strong record at home as well. So what does this really tell us? The result, it does not tell you much. It was 0-0, right? That result alone as a result doesn't tell you much. It seriously doesn't, because he's not going to get sacked on the basis of a 0-0 draw. Manchester United had 4 shots on target. Villa had 7 shots off target. Possession was, Villa had 54, Man United 46. So that doesn't tell you much. Not at all. But what tells you actually what's going on is the decisions made by Erik Ten Hag. Those lineup decisions and the substitutions where the questions are asked. So let's get right into it. Let's get into all this mess. We know that this saga is indeed probably coming to an end with the decision. We know that it was reported previously that Erik Ten Hag, following that embarrassment at Tottenham, had 2 games to save himself, right? He had the Porto game, which was a draw. Doesn't tell us much. It was a crazy game. It was a sending off. Late equalizer by Harry Maguire, who arguably might be saving Erik Ten Hag's career. Maguire, the player who Erik Ten Hag stripped of captaincy, the player who he wanted to sell for 2 summers in a row, might have saved his career. Because if they lost to Porto and drew to Villa, I think that's definitely no. He's definitely getting sacked. Right now, as it stands, a draw there, a draw here, but we've got to look at the bigger picture. Manchester United currently sit in 14th place in the Premier League with only 8 points. They've got the lowest tally at this stage of the season since 1989. They've got a -3 goal difference. Then, just to make matters even worse, the Europa League campaign is not anywhere better, because they've got a draw against FC20 and a draw against Porto, which puts them into 21st place. 21st place. They're nowhere near being in that top 8 to progress into the round of 16, which, to be fair, should be automatic given the size of Manchester United and the other clubs in the Europa League, with all respect to them. But Manchester United should definitely be going through into that next round. So let's now dive into the decisions, because for me, it's not the game, it's not the result, it's not the performance on the pitch really what tells us a story. It's the lineup decisions. That's where things get crazy. Let's take a look at this. So Evans and Maguire start. Both De Ligt and Martinez drop to the bench. Eriksen and Mainoo also start in the midfield with Bruno Fernandes, as Manuel Ugarte now gets 0 minutes in 2 games. Antony comes on in the second half, and Amad Diallo gets 0 minutes. Martinez 0 minutes. Casemiro also comes on, as well as Victor Lindelof. So this is the question, right? You look at that and you simply do not understand what's going on at all. Seriously, what is going on? You're signing £60 million Ugarte, who was brought in to be the future solution for the DM spot. He was meant to be the guy to save Man United, right? All Man United fans were waiting for him to come to full fitness, right? After that terrible performance against Spurs, he's been dropped and given 0 minutes in 2 games, clearly signaling that he's the problem. So Ten Hag has practically said that Ugarte is the problem. You then got £100 million worth of centre-backs in Martinez and De Ligt sitting on the bench. Meanwhile, a player who should be retiring, Johnny Evans, and a player who you want to sell, Maguire, are starting. And Ten Hag says it's for rotation, but do you ever put on two second-choice centre-backs for a game of this magnitude? Do you see Arsenal dropping Gabriel Saliba for an important league game? Do you see Liverpool playing Joe Gomez and Quansah for no reason against a big team in the Premier League? No! That's crazy. Why would you even do that? Your new signings aren't playing. Your new signings aren't doing anything. What is going on with Manchester United? This guy says that he wants to win. He's trying to save his job. And he plays Eriksen, Evans and Maguire with De Ligt, Martinez and Ugarte on the bench. Anthony comes on and not Ahmed. Seriously, what is going on? Is this guy trying to get sacked? Is he actually wanting to leave? Does he want to be sacked? Because this doesn't make any sense at all. And then in the press conference, he says that they have 4 clean sheets this season. So they're organized at the back, and he praised the defense. Are you actually nuts? You've conceded 8 goals in the Premier League. Who says your defense is fantastic? You're nowhere near being the best defensive team in the Premier League. That's Liverpool with 2 goals conceded. You conceded 8. So let's not start talking about having a good defensive record. A team who conceded 3 goals against Spurs in a disaster. 3 goals against Liverpool, which is a disaster. 2 goals against Brighton, which was a disaster. You can't then say, well, we had 4 clean sheets. It doesn't matter if you're in 14th place. A good defense gets points and helps the team do well. If you're still conceding a bunch of goals, there's no point of clean sheets. That does not mean you're well organized at the back. How can a team that's well organized in the back concede 3 goals against Spurs, 3 goals against Porto? That's literally the definition of not organized at the back. So that makes no sense at all. He then spoke about the external noise and how they need to score more goals, but then, quoting what he says, I'm quoting his words, I'm being serious. All the other areas we are doing really well. Defensive transitions are doing really well. Build-up play is good. What are you on about? You're telling me that Manchester United's only problem is that they can't score goals. So you're telling me that the midfield is fine. So the midfield, there's no problem with the midfield, right? The press is good. You're not leaking goals. You're not conceding goals. No, your press is absolutely fine. Your link-up play is fantastic. You know, your wingers are doing absolutely fine. There's great link-up play. Your defense is well organized. Your keeper is phenomenal. Do you really believe that? Or is he actually trying to joke? Are you actually joking, Erik Ten Hag? You are having one of the worst seasons ever in the past 30 years. You've had an embarrassing start. You can't even win a game. And you're telling all the fans, and everyone listening, right? People are listening, wanting an answer from you. And your answer is that you're doing very well. This guy's ability to come up with excuses is crazy. Seriously, when he lost 3-0 to Liverpool, he was talking about the cups. Well, at least he didn't mention that. That would be funny. Drawing to Aston Villa, 14th place in the league, but we won 2 cups in 2 years. We're the second most successful team in the Premier League after Man City. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Makes no sense. And then when he asked about why can't you score goals, he said Højlund is not up to 100% fitness and he's our best goal scorer. Right, so you're relying on one guy to score your goals, even though you've got Rashford, Garnacho, Xerxes, Fernandes. That's not, it's a bit like Liverpool saying, I know we can't score any goals and it's because Salah is not up to 100% fitness. Of course not. When Salah was absent, we were scoring goals left, right and centre with Jota, with Diaz, with Nunez, with Gakpo. You go to Man City, it's the same thing. When Haaland was injured, they still score goals. No professional top quality coach says, we're not scoring goals because one of our players is not up to 100% fitness level. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. So it really comes down to a question, right? Manchester United are in a mess and he's very likely to be sacked. There does not seem to be any reason now to keep him. Because, of course, you could make a very convincing case that sacking him will not make things better. Because of the other options out there not being better. Right? And it's true. In fact, one of the reasons I said he was kept, one of the big reasons was that there weren't any sufficient replacements. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the idea if, for instance, Erik Ten Hag was to be sacked, what would happen, right? So what would happen if he was sacked? Well, clearly Ruud van Nistelrooy would be given the interim job. But let's analyze Ruud. He's had 1 year at PSV, which was quite good, but otherwise, he hasn't got a glamorous CV. Ruud van Nistelrooy, contrary to some people's belief, is not a proven, well-established manager. This is not a guy who's had much experience. Look back what happened to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Came in, United legend, came in, not much experience, and then we all know what happened. Man United crumbled away eventually. Yes, they had some decent times. Yes, they finished second at one point, but in the end, it all ended very badly. They ended with a terrible patch of form, and they ended a terrible season with their least points total in the Premier League era that year ending in 2022. So 100% it does not make any sense whatsoever to claim Ruud will be the future long-term solution. That's a big risk. That's a big risk. The other options being, well, Thomas Tuchel, who apparently snubbed them in the summer because he wants control over signings. You've just brought in all these players for Erik Ten Hag. You're going to bring in Tuchel, who wants control? how's he going to fit the system where it's Ineos making the decisions? You're going to bring in a manager who doesn't really get along with players. You've got a toxic dressing room, and you've got a manager who's going to demand to control the signings. I don't see that working. That doesn't seem to be a fit. And it also doesn't make sense given the fact they negotiated in the summer. So what has changed to then bring in Tuchel? Are Man United getting desperate and they will agree to Tuchel's demands? Or has Tuchel had a bit of a reality check and he's like, alright, fine, I'll come to United, fine, I'll work with these players. Again, question marks. Which top manager would walk into the club and do very well? Especially given the fact you've just spent £200 million on a summer for Ten Hag. You brought in so many of these ex-Ajax players. Seriously, what other manager would want a team of ex-Ajax players? Of a team of Dutch and ex-Ajax players? This seems to be that this recruitment strategy was for Ten Hag. So you're now going to sack him, and who will come in? Right, obviously Potter, Graham Potter, the other option. Not at all an inspiring appointment. He literally just failed at Chelsea because he couldn't deal with the pressure. So you're going to put him into Manchester United, which will have even more pressure. Any manager walking through that door is going to be subject to colossal pressure. And let's not even talk about Gareth Southgate because, come on, of course not. Nowhere near the pedigree. International and club football are very different, but he didn't even win anything internationally. With all due respect to what he's done, of course, tactically, we saw the Euros final. I believe that does not warrant any more analysis. But the simple thing is, we don't know who can replace Ten Hag. I don't think Ineos know. I doubt they already have a good replacement lined up, because if they did, they would have sacked him. They would have sacked him in the summer if they had a good solution, but they don't. If they could bring in someone like Nagelsmann and it would have worked out, they would have done so already. Right? So the problem for Ineos will be they kind of have to sack him. Right? They can't keep a guy who keeps on doing worse. But they also don't know who to bring in. And even if you do bring in a new manager, I don't think the problems will go away. In fact, bringing in a new manager will not likely be the solution. They kind of have to do it as a reactionary move, most likely. But the manager is probably not the problem. You've had Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Oli, Rangnick. You have all these manager after manager coming into the club and failing. At what point do you realize that it's not the managers? At what point do you see that there's a structural problem in play? There's a problem with the ownership, with the recruitment strategy, with a toxic dressing room, with the wrong players being brought in. You've clearly done things wrong. And even after what appears to be a pragmatic and smart summer, I still think you haven't done the right things. You're looking at it, Ugarte, very, very overhyped, hasn't really delivered. Obviously, he's only played one game, let's not be judgmental, but was it wise to bring in so many ex-Ajax players to clearly suit Ten Hag? There's no way it's just by chance that all these players are Dutch and ex-Ajax players. Quite clearly, they're bringing them in because Erik Ten Hag wants them, because he wants their own players. He wants to build this team with his own players. But now, he's not even doing that. He's not even using these new signings. He's clearly reverted to some strange tactic to now just go with Evans, with Maguire, with Casemiro, with Eriksen. With all due respect, of course, Harry Maguire, a fantastic performance against Porto, but where is the long-term project? 3 years, third year in, and you are still starting Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans, a player who you signed to be a stopgap for 1 year, is now starting against Villa at Villa Park. Eriksen is still playing for you ahead of Ugarte, who is getting 0 minutes. Where is the future project? Where is the vision? Where is the club going if £100 million worth of centre-backs are sitting on the bench? It really does not make any sense. And it seems the manager is just, I don't know what, it's very hard to explain it. I don't think any Man United fan can justify what's been going on with his tactical decision, with his strategic decisions, with his errors. And ultimately, if the players are giving up on the manager and results are tumbling and tumbling and tumbling, you can't infinitely keep on backing him and saying keep him, keep him, keep him, keep him. Because what I was going to say is that perhaps they keep the manager and they prove to the players that, it's not going to work this time. We're going to keep the manager, we're going to back him, we're going to do a clear out. But now I'm also thinking they can't do that if he keeps on losing. And he's losing, he's not doing well. They can't be 18th place and then sack Ten Hag. They've got to make a move now and at least pray that Ruud van Nistelrooy will do something in the next few months so some will pull them up. Because otherwise, Manchester United might seriously be in a relegation conversation if they keep on losing and drawing. They can't even get a win. They can't even get a win. It's remarkable what's happened to them in these recent performances. The last time they've won a game was against Barnsley, but the actual last time they've won a game was against Southampton on the 14th of September. Since then, we've seen 2 draws, a defeat, and 2 draws. And not against really good opponents either. Manchester United should be beating Crystal Palace and Porto and FC20. These are unacceptable losses, and whatever excuses there were from last year clearly don't work now. We can't use the excuse of injuries when almost the entire team is fit, apart from Mason Mount and maybe some other players. You can't use the excuse of the superstructure not being there, because it's there. You can't use the excuse of the recruitment being wrong, because they've brought in supposedly the right players. And I understand and appreciate the fact that players need time to settle in and perform. But when you're playing Ugarte for 0 minutes in 2 games, that is not understandable. That does not make any sense. You brought in these players and they're not even playing. You're playing Eriksson and Evans. It's inexplicable. It's strange. And honestly, I do think he'll be sacked tomorrow. I don't see a world where Ineos keep a manager who is blatantly just either stupid or he wants to sack, because you can't lose. You can't draw, be 14th place and then say all the other areas of the pitch are doing very well. I mean, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. Feel sorry for United fans. Obviously, it's always very unpleasant to see your club underperform. But yeah, a tough time for Man United. I do think they will improve at some point in the season. But yeah, that's what I have to say for this episode. And of course, tomorrow we shall see what will indeed happen to Erik Ten Hag. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. And I hope you have a fantastic Sunday evening. And see you all later on for the review of other Premier League games. Catch you the next one.